Hello, time is in my head to be. I'm sorry. I told you some iron kinks to iron out. But okay. That's off balance. Oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? I need to get a better gear for this. But yeah, hello everyone. I'm Plasma Warriors. Many like to call me that guy, the Afro. It fits. But I want to make a video that's a little bit different from my usual rants, and the fact is that I was just coming back from Delta HCon. It was meh, nothing disastrous, nothing great either. But then I started realizing, I thought for a moment that generally speaking, Texas conventions may not be getting as good of a rep besides, Acon might not be so bad, but there's so many issues with other conventions right now. I even spoke about on my Facebook page what could be the next Anime Matsuri, but I think we have a bigger issue up and down the state of Texas, not just in Houston, which is really becoming a convention black hole. I mean, it was bad practically 6 years ago. Now I just think it's getting be disastrous. But generally, we need to realize something about conventions first and foremost before I even make the rest of this video is that cons do not pay for themselves. I learned that very strictly at AsuriCon 2007. And from then on, I realized conventions are very hard to pull off. And I agree. You're trying to make a profit. Who are we kidding? You're trying to make money off of this. The problem I've been seeing lately, and don't think that Acon or San Japan has an issue with this, is that most conventions are not trying to basically say, okay, look, we will have to sacrifice a few things in order to make our convention bigger. And granted, the one con that should be huge right now, San Japan, is shrinking a little bit. I think they actually went down in numbers twice in a row, although part of that was Hurricane Harvey hitting Houston. I'm sorry, if you're going to go to a convention during a hurricane, there's something wrong with you. I will say that. It didn't hit San Antonio that hard, so I was fine. But I was going to be generalizing here that conventions are not just about how the staff win or lose things. I don't think cons are just staff problems. I think conventions in general in Texas are not just fans don't want to come out, but I think overall it's just this perception that, especially with the anime side of things, the industry just doesn't really have very much to offer us anymore. I think that's the bigger problem with a lot of things, but there was a I think it was somebody told me that there was supposed to be a few years ago. I can't remember exactly what was said. Supposed to be a convention that had was really screwing over people. That was supposed to have all the original cast of Star Trek. It was advertised, and it lied through its teeth. I think it was something. They have a movie about it called Con of Wrath, and also I think Space City Comic Con did some things with that too, with The Walking Dead, or I can't remember exactly, but they got cheated out. But that wasn't the end of it. There was another convention I remember here in San Antonio that was supposed to be another comic convention, and I can't remember his name, but the guy who played Darth Vader, David something, I can't remember his name offhand, was supposed to be there, and he had to cancel because he needed. He's probably in his 70s, I think, maybe 80s, and he needs special attention to travel. That's fair enough, and they wouldn't give it to him, and he can't travel without certain things happening. I mean, what was he, 6'7" or something? I mean, that is a big man. He needs some help. And at his age, he can't really travel that well. And people were upset about that. And people were upset about how that went on. And again, I can tell you stories about how Sanchez totally screwed up past probably 7 to 8 years. Um, but generally speaking, the conventions in Texas have been not bad, but have this perception of screwing people over. And sometimes it's the convention's fault. And the cases of a Space City, I can't remember what that convention in San Antonio's name was. It was at the Shrine Auditorium. I can't remember. That convention, they do that. So that's a bad sign when your entire state, at least south of Dallas, and I don't really speak for all conventions, has that persona, but generally they do that, and it's kind of hard for me to believe that it can get fixed overnight. Now, I don't see that with Delta HCon. They're really trying to put on a good show with their guests. Fair enough. I don't really see that with ACon. Um, I don't see that with Comic Palooza, but Comic Palooza has other issues. I'll get to that in a moment. But I generally don't see I don't see any issues coming from conventions that are really well organized in a way. The guests are there, but I also see issues with conventions now in Texas specifically, where you can't really bring in any kind of events. Last year, I think it was Game Expo, and it was pretty close to where I live now, probably closer down the street than I thought it would be. They had hardly anything going on besides a few guests and this good dealers room. I'll admit that. But it was a gamers convention. It wasn't just, oh, by the way, we're going to be Superstar. They tried to put it with anime. It didn't really work out that well. I think it had stayed gaming, it would actually work better, but it didn't happen. I will give credit where credit is due. They did it. They did their job with the guests, but their events were pretty much nah. Again, they put in people and they tried to make money, but this Comic Palooza this year was horrendous with their planning and their. I know it's because the city of Houston runs it, but that's not an excuse. You've got to be able to put together a good event base, and they didn't do that. And I don't know if that's going to be fixed anytime soon. So I think, generally speaking, the biggest problem with conventions up and down Texas is that they're losing touch with their base. I think that's really what it's coming down to. And don't get me wrong, there are certain conventions that do amazing with getting to their base. ACon, of course, amazing. Alamo City Comic Con also does well. And Charles Manuette, he's going to be at Alamo City Comic Con. I want to definitely see him for the first time. And by the way, check out his story of how he became the voice of Mario. That was amazing. But, I just think up and down, just there has to be better than this. And I'm a gamer, I admit it, and the gaming side of things is doing okay, but it could be better. I'm trying to understand something though. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Those of you who aren't Pathfinder Society members in Texas, you need to get in there right away, because I keep saying this and saying this and saying this, and people don't listen, especially in Houston. The Pathfinder Society is one of the best gaming groups, period. I don't mean just RPGs. Every time I've met them, they've been very kind, nothing but good-natured people. I've never had any issues with a single one of them. And in San Antonio, Houston, Atlanta, none. So I would recommend that. The point being, though, gaming, especially in Houston with the Houston Pathfinder Society, is pretty much what you need to be able to do nowadays. If you can't get at least one solid RPG group in, whether it be Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons, I don't like Fifth Edition, but I can see why people do. Then that's a problem. And right now, that's not happening very well. And don't get me wrong, you can put console gaming anywhere in the world, it will still draw people, but you really need to have some kind of base group that knows what they're doing. And I don't want to hear I can't get in that many people. Yeah, well, they're not going anywhere in the RPG world. They're gonna be in that same room probably for 12, 14 hours. It's not easy to run RPGs on a convention. No, I've done it 3 times already. Um, I mean, generally speaking, uh, that's another issue, is that gaming isn't very seriously taken care of. Of course, I can't go on much further without talking about the harassment deal. And honestly, that could be another big flaw. Is that, look, I get it, and I don't want to sound like a complete jerk, but in layman's terms, uh, I think the biggest problem with this harassment system is that people aren't willing to, for my taste, start the um, fixing it themselves. I mean, I made a point, I think, on a Facebook video that um, there wasn't enough self orientation, that people didn't really have the same kind of philosophy that we need to fix our own selves. Sometimes that's great, and sometimes that's just horrible. But in this case, I think Houston specifically is so good at self-managing that it doesn't really need um, all the extra bits of what happened at Anime Matsuri. And I'm not gonna say John Lay did anything great. Okay, I've have other issues with Anime Matsuri. I know this is gonna sound cross, but I personally do not do not care about the Lolita scandal itself. I do care about the harassment. I do care about there are people who get harassed daily at conventions. We're sorry about that. Not nobody's gonna be able to end all of this, but I just felt like John Lay was a terrible person beforehand. I thought the convention was terrible to begin with. I didn't even care about the Lolita stuff because even though that was bad, that wasn't the problem. The con just was terrible. It had no lackluster gaming. It barely showcased anything other than a few anime. I think the first year it was just Transformers repeated over and over again. What it did it for me though with Anime Matsuri was 2011 was the week after the Japanese earthquake and tsunami, and it was like nobody over there cared. And don't get me wrong, they had one page on the back of the program. Oh, whoop de fragging do. They didn't really try to do anything else. And I think that was the biggest issue, in my opinion, of Anime Matsuri, is that it feels like it's such a money grab. I just can't understand why, And let me up the ante one more bit. It starts off. This was the first convention I had, which had VIP stuff. Some cons I can understand that. A lot of anime cons I don't get. Why do you have to pay $300 to jump in line faster? No, I mean that needs to be addressed eventually, and what needs to be dealt with more, I think, than just the harassment point, is that some people in the community know who you are. They know you're gonna do this. They know you're gonna do that, and they need to understand also. Some people in the community will not tolerate it, and I'm glad they won't. but don't take it too far. Don't take the law into your own hands, and don't make it to where you go to a point of no return. Now, that all being said, there are no easy fixes. Okay, there are going to be zero, in my opinion, simple moves or simple plays that are going to change what's going on in Texas, particularly the harassment issue. It needs to get solved. It's not going to be easy. Okay, it's not going to be, oh, it's going to poof magically change. I don't know how to fix it myself. If I did, I'd give you an answer. But like I said, the self-policing sometimes works. But let's not make any mistake. Administration's got to fix things. They can't just go, but we're sorry. We can't really handle all that. Yeah, but there's stuff that you can handle, and believe me, I'm not talking to just one convention when I say this. They need to fix a lot of problems internally. And I don't just mean money and capital and all that jazz. I mean fix what the convention needs. And again, I'm not going to name names on this one, but I'm looking at a good bit of conventions in Texas. Is that you need to fix the problems. Don't just say, well, this is what we're trying to do. No, trust me, I know what you were trying to do because you had it at the convention. It's not like, oh, wow, hey, you got to apologize for this happening. Look, some things are out of your control, and I will understand that. But a lot of things, sorry, I just can't let you get away with. Bad video game rooms aside, if and events generally aren't together right, and believe me, there are a few conventions that have this problem, then I don't care if you don't have one game or another. If I can't have events go smoothly, what am I going to do about it? And one more little bit of detail for me is a lot of conventions in Texas generally don't realize their outside values. I'm specifically talking about the ones along I-10 in San Antonio and Houston, is that they don't really look outside the conventions and see what's going on. And I honestly think that people up and down should realize there's more to what's going on than Naruto or Dragon Ball Z. There's so much else besides the typical anime that is not getting taken care of. So they need to worry more about, in my opinion, like gaming, not specifically, but things that don't just happen along I-10 or your convention. I think that's the biggest flaw of a lot of Texas conventions, is that they don't try to evolve outside their cons. But anyway, there are no easy fixes, and I think Texas generally needs to fix this organization bits and then start transitioning to something other than we don't handle cons well up and down this state. And it's kind of sad because I really like a lot of conventions, but if they're not going to improve, I don't know if I can keep going to them. I mean, cons also cost money for me to go to. Even if I'm volunteering, it costs money. And I have to really take that in consideration when I make these decisions. So, I hope that Onicon specifically can fix some of the problems it had last year, maybe do better than that, because really it might be the con that makes or breaks Texas at this point, because a lot of things other than A-Kon aren't doing well, and some aren't doing as well as you may think. I will hint at that now. Other than PAX South, which is a huge gaming con, I know gaming conventions aren't exactly some people's thing, but it's definitely a convention that I like. I think it's one of the best conventions I'll ever have been to probably this year, maybe even this decade at the way they're going. So I just feel like it's time to fix some of these problems. And it's time to do so quickly. Again, no easy answers, but you've got to try to improve and make your cons better. Anyway, uh, if I had answers, I'd give them to you. But what do you guys think? Should we start with organization? I don't say administration because I can't run a convention. I know that. Um, should we focus on the outside of things, or should we really worry about smaller meetups, smaller get-togethers? I think that would also be kind of cool. But in any case, I've been on for a while, and my roommates are trying to sleep. So later.